Hello there. This presentation has the intention to help consultants figure out ways to position themselves to help clients get from where they are to where they want to go in a way that also level ups both the client and the consultant at the same time for a healthy spiral upwards benefiting everyone. And that's why the title is Choosing Better Consulting Clients, and by doing so, choosing your future with your effort today. Right now, we're talking business and we're talking consulting clients, but this mindset, this worldview, I say works fine with any kind of relationship that you want to build on. This was really created for a keynote for a conference a few weeks ago for NOX Consulting. And why? Because storms are coming, and I do believe consultants will be heavily affected by it. And it was really done in Swedish, so I've translated it, and we'll see how that goes. It's easier talking Swedish for me. And you are right now at a crossroad, and we will revert back to that crossroad again and again in this talk, because you have a path ahead of you and a path that you can communicate to the people in front of you. And basically that fork in the road, the earlier you can see that, the easier it is to communicate that to other people. So really, is this a healthy path forward for both of us? Do you know where you're going? Do your client know where they're going? Do the client have what it takes to help them get to where they want to go? And I will explain that metaphor again, but I think it's healthy to keep reminding yourself that you are right now listening to this, whatever you're doing, in a fork in the road where you can choose, should I do this or should I do that? And of course, anyone you work with have exactly that too. So the easier it is to help them see that, the better it is. And sending people elsewhere should only happen when you know what you want to do, and we'll dive into that. But it's also a generous gift to the other person. The earlier you can send them to someone else and say, sorry, I don't do that. It's a win-win, because then they can find another path forward without eating up your time, effort, or whatever it might be. And when I started my own freelance agency in 2010, I was freaking out. I was so afraid I wouldn't get clients. I wouldn't find clients. And even if I had clients who currently said, we want to work with you, we only want to work with you, you're doing all the heavy lifting in your current work. But I was so afraid, how will I find my clients? And the thing is, I did it all wrong. That comes last. Who do you want to work with is so much more important. And what do you want to become better at is way more important than that. And only if you have an idea, or at least an experiment idea of that, is finding interesting. But I started in the wrong end, and hopefully this talk will help you do less of that mistake that I did. And when I say you in this slides, what I really mean is becoming better at solving hard problems. That is what I believe the path forward, the future for all of us, as standardization and automation and everything is heading that way. Choosing which hard will become your job in the future. And that is the choice you get. But if you choose to do easy stuff, you would become a commodity. Customers in this talk is really, again, if you figure out how you want to help, how you want to show up, who you want to help, is very important. And then you need to think about, is this relevant? What you want to do isn't relevant for everyone else. And the faster we can learn that, it's a benefit for them too. And context too. Sometimes, this is a great solution, but it's kind of out of context with the rest of the stuff you have going on right now. Timing is really important. Sometimes the timing just isn't great, and the faster we can see that, the easier it is for everyone. And of course, people who care, do they care about your problem? The one you want to work hard to help them overcome or level through, or whatever it is you want to help them do. And then, of course, once we figure that out, the finding is important. But I dare say that if you're doing the two first, people most often find you. You won't have to invest so much time in the finding. People will remark word of mouth on your behalf. And again, it goes back to that fork in the road. Once we know how we can help, we can also learn a few sentences that other people can help other people see that fork in the road on our behalf. Oh, you're standing exactly here, and you're heading there, then my friend can help you. And I also believe we quite often resist this idea, but I really believe in the power of adjacent, saying this is like that with a bit of this. Instead of trying to be unique or one of a kind, if we can find a way to be like something the one we're talking to right now understands, the easier it is for them to speak on our behalf. Likewise with the genre, it's like that book. It's like a sci-fi book with this specific topic. Suddenly it's a lot easier. It's trying to say, this is a revolutionary new thinking that no one has thought about. It's hard for people to understand that. And I really believe in imagination. I really believe imagination is, again, the key to the future. And I really believe in your perspective. We'll talk a lot about that because today knowledge is very easy, very free. If you want to learn something, you will learn it because the world is full of knowledge. When I grew up in Sweden, learning IT, there were next to no books, there were no internet, there were nothing. You had to learn from friends, you had to learn from paper magazine, hand typing things. Learning then was really, really hard. Learning now is really, really easy. So what I want to encourage with this talk is to help you unlock your imagination of what might be, to unlock your perspective and share your perspective of why things matters. Because, of course, the knowledge, the craft, the skill is really, really important. But only if you add those two. And of course, data is really, really important. Actually follow up, does it work? To understand that fork in the road, to see that before, predict. I believe you'll have been here before or you'll be there eventually. And of course, this talk is pointless unless you're taking some action afterwards on it. So we'll dive into that too. And daring to ask ourselves on these three, did it work for that intended outcome? For the customer's perspective, the one you stretched out a hand trying to help, the one you did take an action for. Did it work? It's scary, but it's so important. And what you're seeing right now is Lego, something I love, and Optimus Prime, the Autobots. And I kind of find it fun because I'm very into automation. And again, it's about figuring out your way to combine two things. And no, it doesn't have to be unique, it doesn't have to be new, it doesn't have to be special. But I do believe when we're talking about perspective, allow yourself to play with it. Your style, your way. And then again, this was in Swedish. I did this talk, and now I did a Mentimeter asking people what was good about being a consultant. And I'm a consultant and a coach, and I really like being a consultant or a freelancing one. And the best things with being a consultant is really that you do get to level up those skill sets that matter. You become better at your craft. You're allowed to dive deep into whatever skill or results that you're curious about. And you get to bring competencies, or English, knowledge and experience gained from one client to the next, benefiting all the organizations forward. And you quite often get to focus to do what you're there to do. You can leave reorgs, you can leave internal politics, and you can leave gossip and at the water cooler for other people, letting us focus on the work at hand. And my perhaps most favorite one is I get to work alongside with people smarter than me, benefiting all of us. And I really believe that we're better together. And then I did a Mentimeter. Again, this is in Swedish, so I won't help you that much, but I do believe in, again, looking at the pattern a lot. Why did you choose to be a consultant? So pause this right now and just write. Why did you choose this? What's the benefit of this? And because again, this is about finding that fork in the road, saying, no, that is not why I chose this path. So ignore this slide, this presentation, pause, quit, take a walk, whatever, and just write down, why do you choose this? What's the purpose of choosing this? What's the good thing about this choice that you've made, this bet you've done? And again, sorry, what's in it for you? What's important to you? Why do you care about that? Again, it's about adding that perspective as well to these benefits for you selfishly. And for those understanding Swedish, this is the actual response for those attending that physical conference during that keynote. So this is live data. I really believe in using data as much as possible. Real, honest data, not just a belief. And then we did a Mentimeter about what's really bad about consulting. And that too goes back to helping other people see that fork in the road, saying, no, thank you. I don't believe I can help you get there with what I know right now. So ask yourself, same thing, what you don't really like about consulting. Nothing is just better. Better is always about an axis. So ask yourself, what's not really good with consulting? What don't we like with consulting? Pause this. Again, you can come back any other time. The input doesn't matter. What matters is that you're adding your perspective to this. And my answer to this is what you're seeing on the screen right now. Most of your results don't show externally. No body of work is done automatically for your assignments and gigs and work. And I'll explain what body of work means later. But it's really, you're doing a lot of leveling up internally, but it's really hard to be seen outside. And it easily becomes a time trade instead of results and trust decoupled from time. And you get hired to achieve X, and you do the work, and I'm reading right now, you do the work asked of you, yet the steps following after you've done your work don't happen. So, for example, you create a tool requiring a process change, and the process change don't happen, rendering your tool less powerful or less effective. Sure, your boss is happy about that, yet your work could have resulted in so much more, and that goes back to the previous top on body of work. The impact of your implementation could have been better. The problem isn't your results. The problem is in strategy development, something else outside your work. Or the problem is in implementing it, or the leadership around it. And that makes the result different. And again, it would be different what you could bring to the next client had you had that been backed up like that, had you understood. Perhaps there's a design choices there, perhaps there's internal politics there that you want to understand. And theories of what should have happened is not results. And results is really, really handy when you're talking about your body of work. So you can say, this is what we did accomplish together. And I hear a lot of consultants speak about being a slave under their resume. It's really hard to pivot or relearn or do something different. It's always the push and the easy sell of what you've done and rinse repeat. Yet again, goes back to most of us have chosen this trade because we want to level up. We want to become better. We're hungry to have an impact, not to reduce something on a certain level. And again, getting stuck on the wrong side of that, it's not fun. Even knowing you could do more, but there's no way here to do that. And we'll dive into time thieves, agenda-less meetings instead of where you show up as meatbags, just physically attendant because perhaps there's role power or other things. State of games instead of collaboration. It's a lot of things that can eat up those result-giving activities. And one such an example is I created the GDPR report that was very appreciated by my client, yet it kind of felt hidden in a drawer. It really didn't impact the organization way as much as it could have. Yet my employer was happy because now they had the teeth, now they had the proof, so they were happy with the results of the assignment. Yet the employees and everything didn't benefit from it, perhaps the way you want. So think about that when you're talking to clients. So again, ask yourself now, what's bad? And if you've already written something, add to that if something new came up listening to this. And again, why do you care about that? Again, this is the live feed in the Mentimeter during this keynote in Swedish. Things people didn't like. I'm pausing here so people in Sweden can use that. And for me, being a freelance consultant, it's really about becoming better at solving hard problems for those who see, want, and can get your help. The thing is, quite often, we're so focusing on solving problems, and I know I do this mistake all the time. I care about this problem. I believe it's awesome. I have cybersecurity, for example. I'm really into it. Data analytics, so many things I'm really seeing the power from. And I know from previous experiences that it is really important and it's really making an impact. Or startups can say, I have this coolest problem ever that we have a machine learning solve for. But finding people who care about that is a totally different thing. So solve hard problems for those who see, wants, and can get your help. It is so important that we actually accept reality. Am I talking to someone right now who see what I believe is important to get where they want to go? Do they see that? Do they see this something that you can help them start from, push from, leap from, whatever it is? And do they want that leap? Quite often organizations they want a change in results, but they don't want a change in behavior. And it's really, really hard to call that want. The earlier we can see that, the better it is. And then can they get your help? Perhaps they position themselves so they have a month to do that, and you believe, no, it's going to take 6 months. They haven't really positioned themselves. More money might not solve the problem. So learn to see that on their behalf and ask yourself these 3 questions. And of course, you can help them see. You can spark a desire, a need, an urge, sense of urgency for that want. Or you might even also help them with some ammunition to ask for budget to get this done. But that is also time you could have invested elsewhere. But learning to see it is the first step. And then we talk about finding. If we now know what the story they're telling themselves, why they want, what they know, what they see, and what they're capable of, now we know, okay, who do we want to find and how do we help them find their solution, which might not include you. So really, these first two is so important to think about first. And then we need to ask ourselves, having done something, is it working? Do we help them get to where they want to go? And it's scary to ask ourselves that, but it's really, really important. And the earlier we can ask ourselves, how do you know it's working? Who decides if it's working? What decides if it's working? The earlier we can have that designed into those what the problem we're solving, the customer we're serving, which might differ from organization to the organization, the better it is. And that, is it working and how do we know, becomes the level up, the elevation of our customer. That we can also figure out, okay, well, actually, now that I know that, perhaps I should have communicated that earlier. Perhaps I should have woven that in earlier. We become better, and suddenly we position ourselves for a different run with a different client at a different time. Or, of course, again, if we're staying with the same client, we're positioning ourselves better too. Probably we have more relationship power and other things there too. Really, really helps. And the challenge is, I'm adding body work here. That is something we should do while we're doing that. Now that we've figured out what's working, it's also really important we actually save something for ourselves, for our future clients' benefit. And my experience is, when we're doing that, it's always beneficiary to the current client too. And body work, I'm not the one who invented that term. I don't. But I think you can't make it too small. Body work could just be going back to that perspective that you're bold marking something that you're sending. Perhaps you're opening up an email internally and you're sending the bold marks to. These are what I think we need to focus on. Here is where the tension is. Here is where the critical line is. Here is where I think the challenge is. It's bold marking a few words. You might think I'm not adding much, but for those who don't know, it's really, really powerful. Start here. Don't remember to follow up on that. It's really, really powerful. But it can also be that you're creating an internal newsletter for, if it's a big organization, for things that you're learning on a project that you need to share about, whatever is going on. So just internally, let people sign up to be in the know about this topic. Build something beyond just leveling up, delivering on the project. And again, this doesn't have to take more time. It's just a mindset. When we write something on the intranet, we realize this is actually a healthy template, and then we do the healthy template generic, and it's actually becoming better for the intranet, because it's a lot easier to understand when it's generic, and then you add what's sensitive or what's internal. I'm totally saying you should respect intellectual property, anything internal. Only do this on your spare time, if that's just half an hour a week, bringing forth knowledge that has nothing to do with the specific organization, but all to do with these hard problems that you like solving. And over time, you will build a body work, thoughts that matter for people who want to solve this. And this eventually matters to customers. Perhaps I'll get to that later, the benefits of it. So again, becoming better at solving hard problems for those who see, wants, and can get your help. And don't try to persuade people to see what you see. Don't try to persuade people to want what you believe they should want. Instead, say, there's a fork in the road. try her. She might be able to help you get where I believe you want to go. If we're going to work, this needs to be set first. And of course, the earlier we can do that, we both save time. So I myself struggle with guiltiness. I know, well, actually, I can't help you get to level 10 with what you said. I might help you to level 3 though. But the earlier I can say, no, actually, I'm not able to get you to level 10 with whatever you said right now. So the best of luck. Yeah, I genuinely think you should try this route instead, or help them with a free article or something. Don't overcommit just because you feel guilty like I do to someone else should help you get started, because that eventually it turns unclear and they think, well, actually, now that we're on step 3, what should I do to get on step 4? And you might be clear on that fork on the road saying, but actually you need this and this in order to get to level 4. But now that you've helped them to level 3 and they see it's awesome what you've helped them with, they really want your specific help to get to level 4. And suddenly it's not so easy anymore because you understand this problem better than they do. And here I'm showing climbing. I'm really into climbing, and I think it's so easy we forget to position ourselves when we climb. It's so easy we just grab something and then we pull ourselves up. And for the easy, quick wins, that works fine. But for the whole work, we'll never get to the top solving the path you want to climb on. Instead, I think it's important we find the footholds. Less fun, a bit boring, but way more stable. So when we're going back to that fork in the road, when anyone you're talking to, look for the footings, for the safe, stable place where you can start together. You decide this is the pre-requirements, but also you do a few leaps, do a few stretches, but you need to find multiple places to actually go back to a safe foothold, so you can rest and reposition yourself, perhaps traverse inside lays or something. Because I don't know how many projects that I've been working the wrong way of working, and it's just like you keep lifting yourself up week after week, and the design just gets worse and worse because you don't have time to stand still, reflect, ask yourself, is this working? Are we solving the right problems first for our customers? So remind yourself and think about what you're doing right now. What does stable foothold mean to you in the work you're doing? And how can you describe that in a way that lets your client see that, understand that, realize, oh, that's awesome, you get this. And myself, again, I have done a lot of mistakes over the years. Going back, keeping the metaphor of climbing, if we say when we climb to the top, that's when the customer gets the gain. See a project, once the project delivers, that's when the real benefit comes for the customer's clients or customer's customers. Real gain in a process, effectiveness, or whatever it is. So then, and if we're in this metaphor, assuming your special arts come at the near top of that, when it's really the hardest part to climb, perhaps you're the only one in your team that can climb that top part, in order to give them, that's also where you get the real exercise. If you're looking at physical training, for example, they call that you should train above your muscle limit. So you should actually break your muscle a bit so they keep building, not just doing small things that never go through above that. Same with cardio. And it's the same thing with whatever craft you have. You do need to stretch to become better, and that is healthy, at least according to my mind. But quite often we find the time to do so many things. That's just a transport to position ourselves to do that heavy lifting the way only you can do. And the better we can become at identifying effectless meetings, identifying that actually the attendance in this meeting or the client itself has no mandate to change things, or there's less enrollment for the change we're trying to do than we expected, or we're all a bit unwilling to change. So let's roll back to start. If we can understand that that is a cost for doing that, and the better we become at seeing that, we can claim when we start to work, this is how you do business, this is how you believe you will benefit the clients doing things differently. So what do you need to learn to teach the people around you? This is for me. I'm the one who you want to work with because I do less of this so you can do more of that. And only then is marketing interesting. And again, from your own perspective, what needs to be true to make this interesting before you start to climb? And as a different metaphor, here's another climbing photo where if you look at a bouldering, ask yourself, how can you get to the hard part faster, the part that only you can solve for the client? So you can deliver and learn better, again, doing smaller circular motions instead of a long climb and then the circular motion of doing and learning. In bouldering, you choose where you boulder and then you can get that from off the ground instantly. So, and ask yourself, how can you position yourself so you can do that better? So you can find clients who say, actually, we have another one for that. Or I have answers to those process questions that you're asking in a way that you trust. And I really, really believe we're living in a world right now where people just want easy. People just want green dots on the project board. The world doesn't want complicated or hard. They just want easy, green. But if you're choosing to serve people, it goes back to that, who see the world like that, you will be working with teams who only do the easy work and leave the hard work for tomorrow. And the easy work will just become harder and harder. And the gap to actually help becomes smaller and smaller. So I really hope you dare to focus on the hard part for clients. And now it's your turn again. Input serve no value. This keynote serves no value unless you act on it. So again, pause, write down how much, what are your time sucks, effort and energy drains, calendar wastes. Sometimes you need to wait for a person to find a mandate. So, and you just need to wait, so you can't do that, so the benefit can't happen. And how could you do? What would make your world more like this? So it's easier for you to practice on what you want to become better at. See you in a bit. Or I'm not editing, so you need to pause or step away and come back. And now we've been talking about your craft, a skill set, a result-giving activity. I really believe we need to dive into your unique perspective of that, and I really believe we're better together. So while we're doing this work, focusing on you and your clients and how you can find them, I really believe we become better at solving hard problems together. So, but I think the perspective needs to come first. What do you care about? Why do you care about that? And I think it goes back to your perspective, also teaching others what you learn as you learn. And then you will learn faster. So don't just get stuck with learning yourself, reading things, input things. Instead saying, how can what I've learned today, what I've accomplished today, who can I teach? Who can I elevate? How can I help? The thing is, doing that generous work will help you see your own perspective, will help you position yourself for those clients who want to find you. And let's not forget that great work is rewarded by more work. So the better you become at adding your unique perspective on the hard problems you want to solve, the more rewards you'll get on staying there, on doing that work that you want to do. But it's also a trap, because if you keep doing this work, showing up in meetings that don't go anywhere, solving problems you don't want to solve, you'll get rewarded by doing more of that too. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do any of that, because of course you have to, but be mindful. Can we delegate this? And when you talk about delegating, you need to have something hard that you're working on. Otherwise, no, you can stay here, someone else will fix that. So the hard part, there's no escape from the hard part, I'm sorry to say. But you get to choose which hard part. And the better you become at that, again, more work is rewarded by, and great work is rewarded by more work. You'll get to choose. Once you learn to see it from their perspective, you can help them. Well, actually, I can do this for this benefit, or I can do that for that benefit. Suddenly that third option that you don't want to do, that's no option. So learn that. And that's, again, you need to think about your own perspective. You need to think about your own data so you can back up your claims. You need to own your own assertions. I believe this is better because of. And I do believe body of work, which we'll dive into later, is part of that. And now when you create things, don't put that on a platform you don't control. We won't talk much about that though. But I really believe when we talk about body of work, write it in the context that you're helping someone else without stealing your time. Get away from the time trade. Write an article that actually is a step guide. How, if you're here, how can you get there? If you're thinking about this, how will you know? If you want to accomplish that, this is how you can do it. Start bringing nuggets of wisdom to people who care about that, who sees what you see. And it also becomes your own safety line, because then suddenly you can actually reuse that. Again, quite often you will reuse that instantly with your current client, benefiting the current client tremendously, because by rewording it, making it not about the specific client at all, you're making it simpler to understand and they will benefit. But it's also a stepping stone towards, so you can get faster to the work you want to do. And here, before I put I need to explain what I mean with perspectives. One way of saying that is big unsolvable problems you like putting care and effort into. Things that you pop up when you're standing in a queue and you think about it, when you have a few minutes in a meeting, that when people are showing up late for a meeting, you can actually start writing. I have some thoughts about this. So those meetings, instead of wasting 7 minutes to whatever, you can actually create something that would benefit someone. Not in 7 minutes, but if you have a separate notebook where you do that, suddenly those minutes isn't a waste, but they're an investment into becoming a body work and becoming a guide, becoming something that actually helps, that you can put in the hands to someone that actually gets help by that. And for me, that is what you see right now. And I see it's a bit of Swedish too, and I won't bore you that. But the idea isn't here to say, I'd like to learn that. The idea isn't something that you could solve. It's the big problems. But by bringing those forth, and you can also see that in my list here, they're a bit broad. Find your own broad problems. There's no right and wrong. You can put hobby, interests here. There doesn't have to be your line of work. The big unsolvable problems you really enjoy thinking about. Those will keep bubbling up if you write notes on them. And eventually you will find a nugget, a Lego piece that you can bring forth, saying, actually, we could combine these two. Or when you're in a meeting that is slightly related to your big unsolvable problem, you go like, I've given that part a big thought. So you know what, we could do it like this. And suddenly your inner world becomes better around this thought, but also you have a ready-made Lego piece they can just plug in, and having a huge impact for them. So ask yourself again, pause, right, think, what do you like thinking about? And why is that worth it? What would that mean to you if parts of that was easier, better, cleaner, kinder, whatever it is? And I would also say this is very much changing. I did this a while ago. And now I would also put standardizations and automations on this. So this isn't a fixed list either. This might change. 2 months from now, this list will change again. So I'm not saying a finite list. Give yourself permission to write whatever you think about, whatever in your heart right now. And 2 months from now, you might change it, add to it, but keep it on a few multiple items so you can go back and forth, and I'll explain why later. So ask yourself, what questions, hard questions, do you believe is worth becoming better at solving? What questions do you circle back to that doesn't have a clear and easy solution? And questions worth pondering when you find yourself in a queue instead of pulling forth your phone and having other people's input just flooding in. Oh, and I know it's a bit late to say this, but the Swedish presentation had a lot of breakouts and doing exercises with each other that I've cleaned out to make this more video friendly. But if you do want to talk about these things, this is the time when you talk about your big unsolvable problems. Have someone else do this too, and then you talk about it. It is a great way to connect. And again, even if they don't do that work, now that you have, say, 5 or 10 big areas that you really like thinking about, suddenly you'll see a new way to connect with your boss. Because even if they might not enjoy talking about your number one, you will find some way to connect to anyone on your topics. And again, try to open their mind to their topics too while you're doing that. And again, so this perspective of yours, it's not like I have the skill set, this is the way to do it, this is the standard for how you should type or indent, PEP 8 is the way to go. Or this is the tool you should use, VS Code versus whatever, or Apple and Android or whatever. Allow yourself to choose why you care about what you care, but there's no right or wrong. And don't focus on the specific skill set. Instead, focus on the bigger problem. Why did you choose that? Even if it might be religious to some, why is that to you? Or why do you not believe it's like that? Zoom out from what it is, but allow yourself to write up anything there. And that is because, again, knowledge is free. It's an abundance of knowledge out there. If you want to learn it, but these, whatever list you just created, that's quite unique, I dare say. Combined with the knowledge you have, the methods you know, the skills you have, the accomplishments you have, that is way unique. So now we've been talking about the you part in that fork of the road. What do you enjoy working with? What do you learn and become better at? What's the benefit for a client of having you start at that fork of the road together with you and them? So they are in a place where you can lead them to where they say they want to be. Now then, talking about the customer. So now we're leaving you aside for a bit and just focusing on the customer, the client. Quite often a mistake I see people do is they think about customers as a brand. Quite often it's a deep dream brand. I'd love to work there. And brands rarely hire people. It's usually individuals who do. So don't think about it as the whole company this. Instead, think about the individuals. And the thing is, everything decays. If you might have friends there right now, but eventually they will outlevel that company. Or you might not have people there right now, but eventually your friends served right will level up into that company. So, but only if you feed it, otherwise it decays. And you've been talking about your perspective. All the individuals around you have also their perspectives. And now that you have a framework where you can think about things, now you can help them see their perspective. And you can connect on different parts. You do not need to connect on multiple parts to have a successful workday with someone. But I do believe you need to connect on a few of them to really enjoy it. So zoom out a bit and start helping people in these areas that you care about. And again, it goes back to your body of work, that most people you work with, your reputation precedes you today. People are bombarded with input in LinkedIn profiles and data of what you've done. And people might also do a web search on you. So your reputation does precede you, even if you're not doing any body work. But with having written something about an area that interests you, that would be awesome, because suddenly you have a place to connect. Suddenly there's a unique reason why they've chosen you. But it's also even better if you've written something in a helpful manner and that has helped them accomplish something internally. Going back to that fork in the road, suddenly you have insights into their organization. Oh, you did that and that worked great. That is really good for me to know. Suddenly that foothold is a lot easier to see. Or they did that and it was only half good because we needed to tweak this. Suddenly you're talking the same language. You know, okay, well, I can work with that foothold. Or no, sorry, then you should do this before you ask to hire me. So think about your body of work as nuggets that might help other people. And few of those bounce back to request to work with you, to help them. And then you have an ability to see them clearer, because if they work with whatever guidance you have, suddenly a lot easier to see what's going on internally and what doesn't go on internally. So ask yourself, pause, ask yourself, what does a better client look like from your perspective, selfishly? What does a better client look like for their customers? Ignoring yourself, yes, for their customers. What do they do for their customers? What does a great client look like trend-wise? Again, timing is really, really important. Context is really, really important. Relevance is really, really important. You might say, well, I'm just a programmer. I don't care about that. Well, at the end of the day, you're surrounded by people who care about that. Or at least will be affected about that, even if they might not care about it. So myself, I like to ask these questions before saying yes. Do this client follow their consultant's advice, or do they play a look green game? Might also be internal, again, and it goes back to that body of work. Hopefully you already know someone who's benefited from your work with that client, or you have on LinkedIn or somewhere else a previous person you've helped or worked with who are active on site and can help answer questions like this, or who you can ask questions like this to. Do you know anyone on this organization who's asked a complicated question and got help to carry, actually doing something with it instead of just resistance or plausible deniability or something else? And these two are quite easy to answer quite often. Yet the third one is really important, but it's a lot harder to answer. And that is, how much are they willing to change themselves as a hirer? As an organization, often clients want to change their results without changing what they do. And in my experience, that's never worked. The hirer, the recruiter, will probably never say, no, we're really bad at that. We don't want to change. Because, of course, they'll say yes, so you'll have to look again. The two questions above is a good hint. But asking yourself then, are they actually willing to change? Have they changed before? It's really important. Otherwise, you might be stuck. Serving them, they be impressed and happy with your work, but it's really hard to elevate them together with you. And also, I think, going back to that fork in the road, what effort has already been invested? And how do you know they really want it? If no investment has been made, if no tries has been made before, might be that they don't really want it. It's just something they just want to check a box for compliance. They don't really care about how or the details. You might still take that job. That is really, really good to know. Or is it something that they've been trying to accomplish, haven't really done, and then suddenly they have someone like you on board who really knows and can help them? Big difference in appreciation. Or what resources do they have to achieve what they say they prioritize? A lot of areas people want gold, but they don't have a clue how to help make that happen. So ask, again, really hard to find a true answer here, but looking at actually looks like you want to build a rocket ship and we don't have any gear, we don't have any know-how, or we don't have the timeline. Really, really good to actually look at the resources they have in order to try to do that. And again, the further you are from the organization, the harder it is to know truth. So if you've already had your body of work precede you, or you already know people, say on LinkedIn, well, that you can say, oh, you're there right now, then you can understand, oh yeah, this is a big thing we're betting on right now, or the opposite. So I really like LinkedIn. What I recommend now that you have a few perspectives in head, you have a few clients and individuals for clients, start to, and I realize this is in Swedish too, start thinking, who can I reach out to? How can I help? Not like, hey, I'm here, I'm looking for work. But I thought about you when I was thinking about this, doing this, whatever it is. Please do not send them your articles, your body of work. Do not do that, because that will make it very promotional and about you. Instead, think about them. I believe you can get internal points with the organization by using this. Or I think, based on what you just wrote here, I would have appreciated knowing this, and then send them a link there. Really just reach out to help, not asking for anything, not hinting at anything, just politely give them 5 minutes of your time. But also don't just spam people like Autobot saying, here's an article that's help. Actually take 5 minutes, saying, actually, it sounds like you're typing about this. This is how can I, and if you're posting on a comment, ask them, how can I help make their case? Not about how good you are or how well you understand the problem, but, oh, I thought you tried to say this. Then I think this would help. Or I'm adding making them the hero. Don't make it about you. Don't make it about how awesome you are at problem solving. Instead, making it about them and where they're heading with what they post. Some of them, though, might bounce back looking at your stuff. And that's when, again, the body of work, whatever you added, to the perspective, the work you're bringing. I really believe that. And I think we're about to wrap up. If you like this and you want more, you can listen to my podcast, Results and Relationships. Or you can contact me on LinkedIn. Do let me know that you come from this presentation, because it's a lot of Autobots out there. That is really a recommendation. If you're reaching out to anyone who's done any body work, you should also invest just 5 minutes being clear, why do you reach out? Because people who has a lot of body work out there gets a ton of automated messages every day. And they're really well written by Autobots. So it's hard to know when you're just saying, hey, I want to connect. Instead say, hey, we met here and I want to connect. Or we talked about this and I want to connect. Be specific. How do you know and what do you want to do with that? Hopefully, again, from their perspective. So don't make it about you. I want to connect because I want to be connected to you. Instead of saying, hey, we who align on this, we who hang in these groups, and suddenly there's a reason why you're banding together on LinkedIn. But remind yourself, you're competing with Autobots. It's really hard to know that you're legit when they're just automated. So be specific in why you reach out. And of course, do look up noxconsulting.se if you want to work with that consultant broker. They are really a joy to work with. Myself, I do not go via them. I have a direct connection to my client. But they're still great consultant, a good consultant agency, and the network is awesome. So do reach out to them if you want to. Take care, my friend. Have a good one.